On December 2nd, Khabib had a press conference surrounding his new EFC organization that he took over. It was previously called GFC, now it's called Eagle FC. He had like a press conference where people asked him a lot of questions. It was in Russian mainly, so this is based off of translations. But the first thing that I wanted to talk about was Khabib wants MMA in the Olympics, which is kind of strange to me because I don't really know what his motivations were. From what I read, because couldn't obviously I don't know what Russian I can't speak Russian, so I don't know what he's saying. But I don't know what his motivation is. The first thing that would come to my head is if Khabib wants something in the Olympics, I would think it would be sambo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he grew up doing sambo. It's what his grandfather did. It's what his father did.
But they have in the Olympics already, I think. Sambo.
No, it's not in the Olympics. So I looked into that. So it's Greco-Roman wrestling, freestyle, and judo. Those are the three. So like sambo is not in the Olympics right now. So I was thinking, I was like, why wouldn't you try to go after that? Maybe there's like MMA is something close to his heart, and he wants to put that into the Olympics. But it goes a little bit deeper than that because if you actually think about what that actually means for the Olympics, it's kind of strange in terms of what we like off the top of my head. What I would think if you told me about MMA in the Olympics would be you'll have Conor McGregor representing Ireland. You have Khabib representing Russia. But in reality, that's not what the Olympics are, right? The only sport that I could think of, or typical sport, like type of sport, is like the ball sport. So basketball, where you have NBA players come and represent the country. That you have soccer, where you have some people come and represent their country. But a lot of the reason why that happens is because there's an off season and there's some sort of agreement between the NBA and the Olympics. But the problem is when you're dealing with the UFC and you're dealing with MMA, it's prize fighting.
Yeah.
It's individuals who don't have contracts that dictate whether or not they have off seasons or not. It's literally you fight this many fights and you earn this many dollars. So what incentive does UFC have to give to these people to let them go fight?
Yeah. So let's put it in this perspective, okay? So in this perspective, it's like, for example, for boxing, usually in the Olympics, you usually see only amateurs. There's like
there's a reason why, right?
There's a big reason why. But also, I think his whole thing probably would be that if he does have MMA in the Olympics, it would most likely be amateur fighters, and it wouldn't be your pro fighters, because as you said, right, there's no off season. That's why usually for all these combat sports is usually amateurs, because well, like, at least when you're at the pro stage, I guess you're being paid more, right? Because I think even if you win like a gold medal at the Olympics, I think it's 15,000 if you live in Canada or something. So it's like it's not very high, right?
Sponsorships that go along with that too, right? Then afterwards you build the name and stuff like that. So I could see it from that perspective. Yeah. So like the boxing system, it would be amateur fighters who come in and try to represent the country. The other aspect that comes in is that MMA is so much more brutal than boxing, right? So if you have a MMA in the Olympics, you completely change the dynamic in terms of how these fighters fight. If you have very short rounds like boxing has, you have I don't know what happens. What if the game goes towards very, very quick fighting, right? Or you have matches that turn into grappling matches, where it's just wrestling because people don't want to take damage because they know they have to fight again in a week.
Well, also for MMA too, like you don't find too many amateur MMA fighters. They're usually you'll find them like in Muay Thai or something like that, but you don't find too many amateur MMA fighters. So
you're starting to see that. You're starting to see MMA fighters fighting in amateur leagues. But the transition is different from boxing. It's sometimes it's a lot faster, sometimes it's a lot slower. So it's completely different than boxing. I understand that if you put MMA into the Olympics, there's a lot of stuff that you have to figure out. So you have to go and figure out the logistics, how many times people fight per week. But the other thing that comes into play, which is pretty big, is in the U.S., in the regardless of the myths. So the U.S., you're not allowed to fight in MMA until the age of 18 in some states and some regulations. So what happens is now you're forcing the U.S. to change their stance. Because if you look at a country, say, just use Russia as an example, you can find videos of like little children fighting in MMA contests, which I get is how is that different from kids fighting in boxing, or how is that different than judo, right? I get that MMA is a little bit more brutal, but it's the same kind of concept. That's the closest relatable thing that you can find. So you kind of you either force the U.S. to change their stance on that, or you kind of cripple the U.S. in terms of competing in those competitions.
Well, like, it's a cultural thing, right? Because, like, for example, like in Thailand, their Muay Thai fighters are like age of like 8 or like 9 or 10,
children,
right?
So like you either put U.S. at a very, very like handicapped position, or you force them to change it. Do you want children to be fighting at that young of age, especially if you say like once a week they have to fight for 2 or 3 weeks, right? That would be the tournament. Do you want technically children fighting at that age, right, and taking all that damage? And also like China, for example, for not really to fighting, but like gymnastics, they've been caught and there's been speculations that they put people's contestants that they have, the entries, as older ages than they actually are, right? So the reason why they do that is so that they don't have these like little children as their roster, right? Or if they want to meet a certain age group or whatever it may be. So like I understand that the rules are in place so that stuff like that shouldn't happen, but you also have to understand and not be and understand that there's a possibility that it could happen. And do you want 16-year-olds and 15-year-olds fighting in like in MMA? Maybe not. But ultimately, I think this is just a meeting that Khabib is starting. These things could take years and years and years. Maybe when he's in 10 years, maybe he gets some traction on it. I don't think it would happen anytime soon. There's so many other sports that could also be put into the Olympics, such as Sambo, that would closely align. Maybe this is a
or Dagestani
IQ,
basketball, you know?
Dagestani basketball, yeah. Maybe this is a 200 IQ move by Khabib, where he tries to propose MMA and they say no, it's too brutal, and he's like, okay, how about Sambo instead? That could be it too. I have no idea, but we'll keep track of this. I don't think any news of this will come out anytime soon. It would be like a slow process, especially with the Olympics and all the politics, regardless of like the stuff that we're talking about that's involved. So like just people losing out money and like how many people will actually watch this on TV. What does it do with the promotions around? Like who's the feeder? Who becomes the feeder leagues for these Olympics and whatnot. Khabib says he will come back for 2 reasons. Okay, one or the other. Either the money is ridiculously big and he's offered a $100 million contract or fight, or there's something competitive that stands out to him that he wants to come back to. So the quote or the translation that I have is, if they offer me $100 million, then I'll have a problem in front of me. And he said that as with a little smirk on his face to indicate basically not necessarily $100 million is what his target money is. He just wants a really, really big payday. So especially considering all the things that he's getting into, he just got into an MMA promotions. He's opening up gyms, university. He's doing all these things. These things need money, right? Not necessarily just to fund them, but also to start that journey, to make those connections, to build up to the eventual goals that he has set out for himself and in his region and his country, and as well like other countries in the Middle East. What he was asked about Conor versus Poirier, he comes back and says, I choked both of them, so what? No sporting interest in that fight. So we covered the first part about the money situation. So let's say he could probably get maybe like 40-50 million dollars for the fight. Maybe he'll come back. Plausibility, I don't know if he'll get. He dictates that much money.
I mean, let's be honest though. Listen, he's a sick fighter, but Dana White's not gonna pay 50 million. You know, 50 million is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. I don't know if the UFC would go out and do that at the moment.
It would have to be a mega fight, right? With a hammer like Conor and like GSP maybe.
Yeah, I think it would be Conor. But the second aspect where he said that if there's something competitive, he was asked. He was asked about Tony because he kind of wrote off Conor and Poirier. He said if Tony wins, we'll see. Let him win first. His last fight, he was destroyed by Gaethje. I lost interest after the Gaethje fight. Let him win first. That's very, very interesting. So Tony Ferguson was on the hottest of hot streaks before he faced Justin Gaethje. He had that. I don't know if the hype is still real for you between Khabib and Tony fight, but for me, I still want to see that fight regardless.
I mean, I would love to see it, but after that fight against, I don't know, man. It was just pure. The reason why pure destruction, I say, you know, like
the reason why I say that is because in MMA, it's very, very important that you don't do MMA math, right? So you don't say this guy beat this guy, and so Khabib beat Gaethje and Gaethje beat Tony, so therefore Khabib beats Tony, right? It doesn't work like that because of the nature of MMA. It's all about matchups. Similar to all the other sports too, but it's all about matchups. Gaethje is a stand-up fighter who doesn't really have the best grappling, is a decent wrestler in terms of defensively, but Tony, on the other hand, is a very good stand-up fighter and a supremely good grappler, right? Both on the ground and takedowns and wrestling in general. So matchup wise, for me, in my head, I still want to see that. And the hype, of course, it goes down a little bit because he lost to Gaethje, but I definitely want to see that fight. And I can tell from my impression from what Khabib is saying is that he's still interested in that fight. He just needs to see Tony prove himself and validate that, hey, that fight was just a one-off situation. It happens, right? I came off 2 weight cuts in a row. I got a new opponent very, very quickly. He was a completely different style than Khabib was, he was training for the entire time. The game plan wasn't there, and Gaethje just had a very, very good coming out party.
Yeah. So I think what should happen is that Tony Ferguson should, of course, face Oliveira, right? So
yeah,
that's it.
So that takes it to the next point. So Tony versus Oliveira. Hopefully, pray before you go to sleep that it happens, and it's scheduled for December 12th.
It's an amazing card.
It's scheduled for December 12th.
Yeah.
This fight, I think, has huge implications on whether or not Khabib comes back. If on December 12th we see the classic Tony come back where he completely destroys Oliveira, doesn't even need to submit him, right? Just doctor stoppage, if anything. He completely stops him, wins that fight. We can see potentially Khabib saying, you know what, I want that fight. That's fight
not going to be enough for Khabib. That's not going to be enough. I think he has to face Oliveira, and then either he has to fight Poirier or Conor. And then I think he'll fight against Khabib.
Yeah, I don't know. It maybe just because of the timing wise, he wants him to fight another one, but I could see him facing Tony making a call out and saying, "Hey Khabib, come back. I need to fight you. We have unfinished business." I could see Khabib saying, "You know what? Let's do it." Right, and that could probably do about 600,000, 700,000 pay-per-view buys.
But is that big enough for Khabib? You know, if he wants the big money.
Competitively, he's always talked, and his father's always talked about Tony being the toughest challenge, right? On paper, right? He said, or I forget the exact quotes, but they are very firm on the idea that the concept that Tony is the toughest challenge. Tony is a formidable opponent, and something that Khabib hasn't really faced before in his other opponents. All his opponents that he's faced and beat recently and in the past all have different styles, but they don't have the style that Tony has. So the best person on the ground that Khabib has faced is who? Dustin Poirier, jiu-jitsu wise.
Yeah.
Like who's out there?
But
especially offensive jiu-jitsu or offensive on the back.
But it's I don't know. Like, you might raise some eyebrows though, because after his fight against Gaethje, he had that post-retirement speech, right? I don't really know if he should come back. It might ruin his name a little bit. But
no, don't worry. MMA is completely different than any other sport. Names, people don't care. People went through the whole retirement thing. People soaked it in and took in the entire story as a whole. If he comes back, if Tony wins impressively, and then Khabib says, you know what, UFC, let's make that fight, I think it will be even bigger now. People will be like, no way, he's back, let's go, right? They'll be very, very excited. So the next step in this, after the Tony, say Tony and Oliveira have their fight, the next thing in the story would be Khabib is set to meet Dana White on January 23rd. So I believe it's for his cousin Umair's fight. So Khabib will be attending that fight, and Dana will obviously be there as well. So I think Khabib is going to go into there, and Dana's probably under the impression as well that he's going to come and talk to him about the EFC. He's going to talk about the lightweight title. He's going to talk about his future, and hopefully the Tony fight. Maybe talking about, hey, you saw Tony? He completely destroyed him. Do you want that fight? Maybe Khabib comes back and says, you know what? Let's do it, Dana. Let's do it after Ramadan, maybe in July, September, around that area.
Yeah,
maybe around that time. But Khabib also said that when he meets Dana on the 23rd, he thinks that Dana will strip him of the title. So it could be very interesting if Tony loses and Khabib goes and meets Dana White on the 23rd. I think he would strip him. He just basically
and
goes.
Conor fights in January, right?
Yeah, he fights in January. I think Dana.
He'd be stripped before that.
If Tony loses, Khabib's gonna go to Dana and be like, "Listen, brother, who's left? Who's left? There's Tony. He just lost. Conor and Poirier. I choked them both out. Gaethje, I beat him. Like, who's left?
Bring me GSP, brother. Give me Mayweather."
Maybe you'll have that discussion too. But we'll see. Let's wait until the press conference after the January 23rd card. So I don't know if you watch those press conferences where Dana White comes out and talks. I guarantee you somebody's gonna ask, "Hey, have you talked to Khabib? What happened? Blah 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 blah," and we'll get some sort of news. Khabib on Islam Makhachev. Khabib was talking about Islam in his press conference, not about the religion, about the guy. He said Islam Makhachev just needs to be more active and fight. Needs to not think about title, but stay active and take fights now. So I looked into it a little bit more. Islam is, guess how old do you think Islam is? 29 years old. 29? So I went a step further and looked at how many fights did he have in the UFC and how many did he have during those years, like every single year. So he started in 2015. He had 2 fights, one in May, one in October. Then in 2016 he had 1. 2017 he had 1. 2018 he had 2, and 2019 he had 2. So unfortunately, he hasn't had that many fights in the UFC. Typically, the UFC wants people to fight, or this was previous, but I don't know how much they want now. But
but he's so avoided, you know. He's so avoided in that whole class that like if you fight him, there's like a big chance of not only losing your ranking, right, but getting destroyed by this guy.
It goes
So,
it's deeper than that
you really
because
wanna fight him,
he does have an injury history as well. He also abides by that Ramadan restriction where he doesn't fight during that month and a little bit prior and a little bit after because of getting back in shape and spirituality and all that. But so he's fought no times in 2020. It looks like it's confirmed that he's not going to fight during this month because of the illness that he came down with and what RDA came down with. But I wanted to make like a little comparison with Khabib, right? Not necessarily the same exact fighter, but he has similar background, similar in terms of the same camp, right? Maybe the same manager, I think. Yeah, Ali Abdulaziz. Yes. So Khabib joined the UFC in 2012 and fought 9 times in the 5 years. So he joined in 2012. In 2017, he turned 29, right? So in that 5-year time frame, he fought 9 times. Islam fought 8 times in that same time frame. On the when he turned 29 years old, Khabib, he fought Edson Barboza, who was top 10 ranked at that time, and was on a 3-fight win streak. If you look at that parallel and you compare it to Islam, he is kind of in that same realm, where he's 29 years old. He's had 5 years in the UFC, has fought 8 times in the UFC, and is now looking to enter that top 10. Khabib did that using Edson Barboza, who's probably he's probably like 6'5", around back in 2017. So Islam is being targeted to face RDA. Do you know what rank RDA is right now?
I'm gonna say somewhere in like top 6, top 7. I'm not too sure.
He's 6th, which is kind of surprising.
He's 6th?
Yeah, he's 6th ranked. So I think what the UFC is attempting to do is they continually try to make this fight with RDA. There's obviously other people that he could go and face that are either ranked better than RDA or worse. But if the goal is to get him into the top 10 and make him more active, there's other options out there. There's Paul Felder, for example, that will fight anytime, right? He'll fight anybody and anywhere. There's other people.
Pandemic Felder.
Yeah. There's Donald Cerrone that he could fight, right? There's a lot of people that he can fight, but I think the UFC is targeting RDA specifically because they know RDA is a little bit older. He's slowed down significantly. He has a style that Islam most likely would beat. I'm not sure if he would finish him, but most likely a decision win. Plus, would catapult him to that 6th spot potentially, 6, 7, and 8 around there.
Also with Islam too, Also with him too is that if you compare him to Khabib, I mean, skill wise he's there, and also with his personality, he's much more out there too, right? So yeah, it'll be fun to watch him out there.
Yeah, his potential. If you want to make parallels, you can probably make parallels of Nick and Nate Diaz. Like Nate Diaz was always in the background, but he had a lot of personality in terms of Nick, right? Compared to Nick. So Nick was always in the front and in the spotlight. He had all the attention from the media and from the fans, and Nate just sat back. And then eventually Nate took his opportunity when it came, and he got catapulted. And arguably, you could say that Nate is more popular than Nick now. A lot of factors, right? Because Nick hasn't fought for years, and Nate has been active and been on like.
Well, the post Conor fight, like it's a big argument. But,
yeah, exactly. So I really want to see Islam Makhachev to go on that same journey that Khabib went on after he turned 29 as well, where he beat Edson Barboza, and then he went on to, the rest of the story, when he won the belt and whatnot. So Islam needs to be more active in comparison to his close competitor and friend, Khabib, he's on basically the same trajectory.
He needs a Brock Lesnar fight too, right? So.
He needs Brock. Give him Brock Lesnar.
and Mayweather.
Give him. But hopefully he gets, just keep him on the RDA fight. He gets top 7, top 8 ranked. Then he goes on and maybe faces a top 5 opponent. You never know what's going to happen, but Khabib is right. He needs to be active and not think about the title right now. Just win your fights as they come. The one or two fights average that come to you per year. Conor and Khabib. When asked about Conor, Khabib says, doesn't think Conor gonna provoke him since he has fight with Poirier to worry about. Thought Conor was going to be tougher mentally in their fight, but understood he broke him when he said, it's just business. He went on and said, it's like a son getting a beating from his father and tries to calm him down with excuses so the father won't beat him so hard. These are harsh fighting words. I can see where he saw that that Conor wasn't mentally fully there in terms of sharpness that he typically is at. It came out afterwards that Conor didn't really have the best training camp. He had injuries here and there, but also wasn't taking it as seriously as he typically would, the previous Conor. So Khabib is kind of confirming that the person that he saw across the octagon and the one that he fought wasn't mentally strong, right? It wasn't the guy that he was thinking was going to show up on that night, and he basically had his way with him.
You think whiskey gonna help him?
So after this press conference, I also went on and looked if Conor tweeted anything, and he tweeted nothing, which is kind of strange for Conor. I could be mistaken. Maybe he tweeted and deleted, but like Khabib said some fighting words, and those words probably are coming at Conor in his mentions for sure. He basically kind of reaffirmed and put it back into Conor's face that, hey, I beat you at your own game in terms of the mental warfare, and basically I was the better man. In terms of Conor, I think he goes on to face Poirier. If he wins, he's calling out Khabib 100% sure. He's gonna go and have like that same type of energy that he had after the Don Cerrone fight, if you remember, where he was calling out everybody.
It was motivated Conor.
So we'll see what happens after the Conor fight against Poirier, and we'll see. Possibly, you never know. Khabib might see that it's
Khabib Conor 2 in the summer of 2021. Would be nice.
Book it?
Very nice.
Should we book it?
Let's book it right now. Khalas.
Book it? Okay, confirm. Let's get our tickets. Is Khabib worth $100 million for a fight? So Khabib came out and during the press conference, he mentioned, he's like, if I have $100 million in front of me, we're going to have a problem. Right? So he's basically saying, if they offer me $100 million, I'm taking it. I'm going to fight because that's just stupid amount of money. I went a little bit further and I wanted to look at how much do you actually think Khabib is worth in terms of paying him per fight?
I'm going to say like in total, like his net worth?
No, not his net worth. Like how much would you pay him for a fight?
Pay him?
Well, I didn't say net worth.
I think, well, his last fight, what I heard is that his purse was $10 million, right? I think probably the average is like 5 to 8 million for a fight. But let's say it's Conor, okay? I would probably pay him $20 million.
$20 million? Okay, so you're nowhere close to what he wants in terms of getting paid. But I want to look into a little bit deeper. So one thing that I wanted to like determine first was how much pay-per-view does he actually draw, because that's UFC's main model for making money, right? Because they charge $65. Their distributor.
But let's consider that there's USA and there's also international pay-per-view, right? So
yeah, those numbers are included because a lot of other countries like in the Middle East and Russia, they have them broadcasted on paid channels, so it's not necessarily pay-per-view like the Western world has. So so we look at Khabib's pay-per-views drawing. So if you start off with the first pay-per-view that he headlined, it was Khabib versus Iaquinta. That was supposed to be Tony instead. But then all those injuries and all those replacements, it ended up being Iaquinta. It did 350,000 pay-per-view buys. The next one after that Khabib headlined was Conor versus Khabib, and that did 2.4 million.
big number.
the big no. That's the biggest in UFC history. So
Yeah.
the next one was Khabib versus Poirier. The official numbers or like an estimate wasn't released like all the other ones were typically. But Ali Abdulaziz, our good friend, he said our good friend said it was around 1 million pay-per-view buys. So let's take that number and minus like 200,000 because it's Ali Abdulaziz. So you never know. He's a promoter. He's an agent. He's a manager. He does those things, right? That fight was against Poirier in Abu Dhabi, and the start time was at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So the Western world was not getting the fight at the typical time that they would get it at like 10 p.m. They had to watch it in the afternoon instead. And the most recent fight was Khabib versus Gaethje. That did 675,000 pay-per-view buys, and that was also a 1 p.m. start. I don't know if $100 million is applicable for the UFC.
Well, there's also a gate, right?
Yeah, but then there's no gate in today's world at the moment. But so I was trying to do that simple math and be like, okay, $60 per pay-per-view, you did $1 million, that's $60 million. But the problem comes in is when you look at other people's paydays. So there's something very interesting. Conor came out right before the Cerrone fight, and he came out and said it was regarding the Khabib fight and how much he made. So Ariel Helwani said, how much did you make during that fight? He goes and says that he made 50 million and a bit for that fight. So for a $2.4 million pay-per-view buy rate, he made around $50 million. So if you take that number and you maybe lessen it a little bit, and you also understand that his number doesn't necessarily just encapsulate the fight itself, right? Because he probably gets sponsorship money from Reebok and other sponsors that he used before and after the fight. Money maybe from the UFC in addition as pay-per-view points, money and maybe other partnerships. I don't know. So if you use Conor or take Conor for his word and say $50 million was his payday for a 2.4 million pay-per-view buy, let's take that number and try to take your estimate of how many pay-per-views Khabib is going to do in his next fight, and use that number in correlation with that 50 million. If you do a quick math and you say Khabib versus Tony would do 700,000, and you take the 2.4 million unit of Conor versus Khabib buy rate, you would get 29%. So, or just round it up to 30. So the earnings would be 30% of what Conor was earning from the Khabib versus Conor fight, right? So 30% times the 50 million. Let's just do quick maths. It's about $15 million. Let's just round that number up and say about $20 million. I don't know if Khabib would necessarily take $20 million for that, for coming back out of his retirement and making the fight. But at the same time, $20 million is $20 million. It's hard to it's hard to turn down $20 million, especially when you have all these things on your plate in terms of trying to achieve, right? Right now, Khabib is probably sitting there and looking at his balance sheets and seeing his income coming in. And he's like, you know what? If I had another $10 million, this process would probably go a lot faster and a lot quicker, and probably even better because I put in more money into the process. So why not come back for that $20 million and make a fight? The other conversation is, would the UFC even offer $20 million? Right? The Conor and Khabib are completely different situations.